Look how clean my car is. Had it valeted yesterday. Lovely, sparkling fresh. Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. It's another wet Friday morning here in glorious South Wales. I'm heading off to the cinema again today. I'm going to see Venom, The Last Dance. I don't know why I hate the previous two films. I can't stand this series. But I'm going to subject myself to nearly 2 hours of torture. What can I say? I'm off to meet a friend of mine whose birthday it is. We're going to grab a coffee and a bap from Costa before we go in. Probably going to be the highlight of the morning, to be honest. Anyway, off to see the film. I shall report back after this. So here we are at Showcase Cinema. I'm treating young Trev here on his very special birthday to a cinema trip to see Venom, The Last Dance. You looking forward to it, Trev?
Yeah, best day of my life.
Good Lord. I don't think this will end well. Hello there, welcome back. I'm back in the cinema room. I was going to do my post-mortem on Venom, The Last Dance in the car, but surprisingly when we came out of the cinema it was actually quite bright, so I sat in the car and it was a bit dazzling and shadowy, so I thought I'll come back and do it here. I won't be too long, I won't keep you long, because you'll have seen loads of reviews of this film, you'll have read loads of reviews of this film, and the general consensus is it's a bit pants. Well, it is, obviously, because the Venom films are. I hated the first Venom film with a vengeance, detested it. Hated the second film, really didn't like it. And came in to see the third one just for the sake of completion. Expected to feel much the same about it. And I didn't actually mind it too much. I mean, it's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination. It's very messy and sloppy in the way that Sony's Marvel-related films always are. But it's fit for the entertaining. I mean, it's messy, of course it's messy. I've seen some reviews from critics who should know better, saying that it's so unstructured, it just feels like lots of random scenes jammed together. No, it isn't. It is messy, it is scrappy, but there's a plot, there's a through line, there's an art to it, and I think that people who say things like that don't really get this sort of cinema and probably really shouldn't be reviewing them, because it's not their cup of tea. There is a logic to the story, and it sort of flows, and there is a definitive ending. What I liked about this film were two main things. Part of the action is set around Area 51, that mysterious secret government research place in New Mexico in the middle of the desert that's been shrouded in mystery for decades, and there's all these sort of conspiracies about what's going on there, alien autopsies and alien technology being developed there. Nobody really knows what's there, and I think anything that's set in and around there piques my interest, because I think that's a fascinating sort of American cultural thing that nobody really knows anything about. So anything that is set there will always interest me, because I'm intrigued to see what creators and storytellers can do with it. And this is quite interesting what they do with it here. It sort of ties in with the Venom mythos, as it were. The other thing I liked about it is that it actually has a bit of an emotional resonance to it, especially towards the end. I'm not going to spoil the film, obviously, because I dare say a lot of you will rush out to see it, because I know Venom is sort of strangely popular, but it does have a bit of emotion to it, and you get to understand a bit more about this symbiotic relationship between Eddie Brock, played, of course, again by Tom Hardy, and the alien symbiote. And in some ways, you don't realise that the relationship is buddy relationship. It is a buddy thing. It's never really come across like that, because Eddie's always seemed frustrated by the symbiote. He can't control the symbiote. The symbiote has a sort of a childlike attitude about things. He sort of behaves like a child, throwing things around, having tantrums and overexcitable. That's sort of amusing in places, but I've just found it a bit wearing in the previous two films. Even though the films, I think they're all supposed to be set in a fairly sort of tight time span. I think it's been, 3 years since the last film? This carries on more or less for the last film finished, really. And the story basically here is that on the symbiote planet, there's this character whose name I can't remember. He has an army of symbiotes and he sends them to Earth to reclaim Venom, because Venom is the codex. He's a vital part of the symbiote entity that this godlike creature needs to complete himself. So all these symbiotes are sent to Earth to capture Venom. Meanwhile, in Area 51, there are other symbiote creatures that the government have captured and are keeping in tanks, and they're keeping them under control and are experimenting on them and trying to find out about them. And eventually the story sort of brings this together, really, as Venom and Eddie Brock end up at Area 51 for a final cataclysmic battle. Now, I will say, we're so used to CGI overload in films, and it's all, oh, God. But actually, I think the stuff at the end of this film is really well done. It is very spectacular. We know it's all CGI, these great big huge creatures thrashing about the place. But it has a sense of scale and a sense of spectacle that even somebody like me who's seen all these films and you think will be completely inured to CGI spectacle. Even I thought, actually, this is pretty spectacular. And it's quite brutal too, because we've seen in the past Venom, one of his ways of offing his enemies is to bite the heads off. And there's quite a bit of that in this film. The symbiotes creatures run rampage around the Area 51 camp, routinely splatting and devouring people and exploding them. So it's, even though it's rated 15, and I think that's probably because some fairly graphic sort of violence, comic book violence, of course, it's not the realistic violence that you get in some horror films, but it's quite graphic for a comic book film. We don't see a lot of this sort of stuff in your typical Marvel Studios film, for example. But there are a couple of good gags. Certainly at the beginning of the film, there's a really smart gag about Marvel's multiverse obsession, which is very good. And another line that made me laugh is when, at the beginning of the film, Eddie and Venom, they're in a bar, which you might recall, I think, from the end of some previous film with Venom in. They're in a bar, and Venom smashes up the bar and starts making cocktails and things. And he says in that voice of his, "I could have been a bartender," which I thought was quite funny. There's a few little bits that make you smile here and there. There are a few bits that make you cringe here and there as well. I mean, I've always found the Venom voice that I think Tom Hardy does so irritating and so annoying and so gruff. And I'm not going to say unbelievable in the context of a film like this, but it just, I think the tone of it just feels wrong, the whole voice and the way he talks. But I think I quite like, and it came across quite well in this film, that he is like a toddler on Sunny Delight who's got ADHD and he's new experiences all the time. And that's sort of vaguely endearing. But there are, as I say, there are some bits that, there's a dance sequence involving Dancing Queen by ABBA, although it's the cover version by the 18s, that I was just, oh, why do this now? Why? The film is written and directed by Kerry Marcel, who wrote the previous two films and is finally in the director's chair, and it moves along in a decent old clip. It's well directed. The CGI is very good. The acting for what it is, for this sort of thing, is very good. You do have to wonder why people like Juno Temple, Chiwetel Ejiofor and Stephen Graham are doing a film like this. It must have been a very tempting paycheck, although I think Stephen Graham, who was in the previous film, I think he must have done his scenes in one day because he's not in it a lot. But you do wonder what was in it for them as actors, because, you know, they usually do quite sort of serious or more credible things than this. But then again, Tom Hardy, I mean, he's committed himself to 3 of these films, and I suppose churning one of these out every couple of years is a bit of light relief from some of the heavier stuff that he does. So all in all, it's not disastrous. I wouldn't rush to see it again. I've not watched any of the previous ones again because I really didn't like them. And the tone is much the same, but it sort of heads towards a climax, which is 1, spectacular, and 2, has some emotion embedded into it. And that made it work and kept my interest up a little bit. You've got other people in the cast like Rhys Ifans, who plays this sort of, I think he's been in it before, but I can't remember. This slightly hippie-ish bloke who's obsessed with Area 51. So it's a good cast who perform well in a script that doesn't really offer them much to do and demand much of them. But I think it's a better ending than I might have expected for the Venom saga, bearing in mind I haven't liked the previous ones. So it's not a great film. It won't be in my top 10 list at the end of the year, obviously. But I didn't hate it as much. It didn't frustrate me. The previous 2, I was squirming in my seat at how awful I thought they were. But this one kept my interest up, and I cringed here and there, and I winced here and there, but I had a good time occasionally. So don't necessarily trust all the critics. A lot of critics review these films who aren't into these sort of films anyway, so they're never going to find the good points in them. And people who say, oh, it's got no structure and it's all over the place, yeah, it is a bit random, but there's a plot and a thread that moves along, and I think people who say that are just being a bit sniffy. So that's Venom, The Last Dance in cinemas now. If you're planning to see it, why not leave a comment down below? Let me know what you thought of it, if you've seen it, what you thought of the whole Venom series. I can take it or leave it, and I will probably leave it. But this is a decent enough finale, and I'm going to give it 5.5 out of 10. Why 0.5? I have no idea, but it just seemed a little bit better than the halfway mark, but only very slightly. Right, that's me done. Thank you very much. Let me know what you thought of Venom: The Last Dance. I'll be back soon with some more content, more Halloweeny stuff coming up over the weekend. I'll see you soon. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscriber numbers are still rising. Thank you to all the new people who are coming on board. New people coming on board every day, which is fantastic. I hope you stick around. Hope you enjoy the channel. There's loads of stuff for you to look at back here and loads of stuff to come. I'll see you soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.